You are listening to the Two and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
Grab some poutine and a double-double. It's time for the Two and Out CFL podcast.
He's got it! Oh, baby!
Every week, Travis Currah.
That's Grey Cup me, which is a different person.
And Brazilian Tide.
Hunters are people too.
Talk fantasy football, bring you the latest in CFL news, and sprinkle in a little bit of nonsense.
Oh, nearly intercepted and it's over!
Ready, set, hunt!
Thanks for pressing play on this episode of Two and Out. It's Travis Currah and Sheldon Jones as we recap Division Final Saturday in the Canadian Football League. We will talk about what happened elsewhere in Canadian football because it was basically Championship Saturday all across the country. I would say if you add up all of these games, there could be 65, 70,000 people across Canada out to football games, which is pretty damn cool any way you look at it, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, football is it's alive and kicking.
And it helps that the weather was nice. Like this time of the year, we could get absolutely anything, but it seemed to be all right. The Saskatoon Hilltops win the Canadian Bowl. They beat the West Shore Rebels 17-10, so congratulations to them. And a wild finish in the Hardy Cup. The U of A Golden Bears looked like they were going to win this thing, winning Canada West for the first time in over 4 decades. But on the final play of the game, UBC, the touchdown, the fullback, and the walk-off extra point, winning 28-27. You got to love those finishes in football, man.
Oh yeah, like anytime, like in the CFL has the rules and for that, and you always love to see them come down to the last second.
UBC is going to play Saint FX, who beat Bishops 34-23. Montreal grinded out a victory over Laval 12-6. The final there, and then they're going to play Western, who beat Laurier 29-14. Could we have 2 championship Montreal teams when it comes to football across Canada? Because as Andre put it on our YouTube channel, he's the big Alouettes fan. He's always there with a comment. He's like, you better put some respect on the Alouettes name, and they deserve it. 38-17 over the 16-2 Toronto Argonauts, and it was the tone set on the very first drive. The Argos were driving down the field, and it looked like it was going to be a familiar story. They were going to use Ouellette. They were going to run all over teams. It was early on. AJ Ouellette had a 19-yard rush.
First play.
Yeah. And they got right down to the 7-yard line. And then he's the most outstanding Canadian out of the East, right?
Yeah.
Marc-Antoine Dequoy. He takes the pick six, 103 yards the other way. Touchdown Alouettes. They are up 7-0. And Sheldon, quite frankly, the Argos offense never recovered from that point forward.
No, it was just it's a huge dagger. If you remember earlier in the season, Montreal actually did that to Winnipeg. They had 2 pick sixes on Zach early in one game too. So yeah, Montreal's defense, they know how to set the tone. They just have playmakers. This whole weekend was defense. The defensive game. The defense has played or came to play. But Montreal's defense, very few. I'm not going to be like Stiegel and say nobody saw this coming other than Montreal fans, but very few people saw this coming.
I don't think it really, I mean, of course, I thought that they had a chance to win. I don't know if I would have told you they would have won by 3 scores or limited the Argos offense the way that they did. It was only 10-3 at halftime. So Toronto was in this game. And I guess, and that's to Montreal's detriment a little bit. Like, and credit to even Toronto's defense. overall, man, 9 turnovers for the Argos. And Montreal had 1 offensive touchdown. So it's not like you're feeling inspired as an Alouettes fan regarding the offense, but football's a team sport. There are 3 phases. They all go into winning a game, and clearly that's why they won this game. And the fascinating thing about this game is that it might have been one of the most important games in the last decade in Toronto. 26,620 people there. The most well-attended Argo game in BMO Field history. And that's what happens. That's rough. And I mean, you want to retain a lot of those fans going into next season, but this one has to hurt.
Yeah, I I actually feel for the Argos. Like
it feels weird to feel bad for a team that just went 16-2, but
it does, and but you had like 10, probably 10,000 people there that wouldn't necessarily be at a game. I know you said this in the group chat there, but like I was like, it's crazy that the fans are booing a quarterback who took them to 15-1, but the guy threw like six picks, 7 picks. Like
he threw 4 himself.
Oh, just 4. Okay,
but there were 4 turnovers on downs. They were getting stuffed on short yardage. They
nothing went right for Chad Kelly, and you can tell that he was trying his hardest, but also he was in over his head. And even in the third quarter, you could see him on the sidelines. He was looking at the iPad and he just was mouthing like, I don't effing know what the F is going on. Like you could just tell he was at that's the point where you put Cameron Dukes in and you see if you can get a spark. Like I don't know why they didn't make a switch, because regardless of if that guy's going to win MOP, like the voting was before this week.
Doesn't that feel crazy?
Yeah, it does, because if you would have taken, but that's why you can't have a single game make the outcome. So I understand it, but like, after this week, for sure, it looks like Oliveira should be the MOP. But
I don't know if there's another instance where like the MOP winning player goes out in the last game of the year like that,
It's gonna be crazy, because the Argos are probably gonna win 80% of those awards, and that's got to be really deflating. But you can also use that as motivation too, because they're getting the hardware, and they can use that for next year. But I felt really bad for him, because I don't think his coach helped him out by keeping him in the game that long. I really don't, because that's just some of those picks weren't his fault. Some of the picks, the player was just hiding. He couldn't see him. You could tell.
But there were some bad decisions out there.
There's some, yeah.
There was one that, and he's made these throws in the past where he throws them completely across his body, but it's not good technique. It usually doesn't end well. And in this game, obviously it didn't end well. But I got to ask you, and Derek Dennis he did tweet about this when the Calgary Stampeders lost the 2016 Grey Cup to Ottawa in Toronto. And now Calgary got back to the dance in 2018 in Edmonton, and they ended up winning the game. But it's arguable that 2016 team was better. And that 2016 team might have been better than the Argonauts this year, like just how good they were. But, and Derek said it, we never had any adversity. Mm-hmm. The Argos never had any adversity all year long. And it came at the worst possible time. I think if Chad Kelly performed like this in June and July, we wouldn't have been surprised. And I think that's our memories are quite short. Mm-hmm. He's a first-year starter.
Well, that's again, and I think that's what makes him win this award. If he's playing in the league as long as Zach Caleros, and he was going up against Brady Oliveira this year, I think Oliveira takes it, just because you would have had that tenure in the league already, showing that you've done it year after year after year. We didn't have that with Chad Kelly. So I social media is going to be pretty crazy with this all week, but that is what makes this season outstanding for Kelly. 15-1 as a starter, second highest winning percentage in a season ever. So that's outstanding. And I know it's a team game, but you're only as good as your quarterback.
Now, compare it to Montreal. The adversity they faced was right from the beginning, man. And then they picked up Sean Lemon, who, quite frankly, comes in probably with a chip on his shoulder, thinking that, hey, nobody really wants me.
Sankey too.
Sankey.
The Riders decided they didn't want him, and he went to the XFL, and he won a championship down there, and he comes back, and now he's a chance to to double dip and win a championship
He's
again.
played a lot of football this year.
But he's still playing at a crazy level. Like, it's amazing.
Well, and then you look at the quarterback, you look at the head coach. I mean, they were basically cast off from their team in Saskatchewan last year. So I think that chip on the shoulder definitely inspires a guy going into the year, but Montreal has had the deck stacked against them. The power rankings came out in June. I saw this. They were last before the season. And here they are going to be playing for the Grey Cup. I think a remarkable season for the Alouettes, and just what they did to Chad Kelly, they made him look normal. He never got set. They forced him to make the bad decisions. And even their defense, like Toronto's defense was getting to Fajardo. Fajardo wasn't able to get too much done. Like, he did throw an interception. Again, it's one of those things where Cody's interception, it ended up turning into nothing. Like, and all year long, we've seen the Argos force a turnover and then make you pay. But in this game, nothing went right, man. And that was the weird thing. At the end of the first half, both teams had opportunities to go into the room with some real momentum. And I think the Montreal Alouettes set the tone when they stopped Toronto on 3rd and short a couple times. Do you think Dinwiddie maybe got himself away from what was making them successful during the year? Because Kelly stayed in for those short yardage plays, and they didn't work. One of them actually looked like a really long 3rd and 1, and they tried the quarterback plunge, and obviously with Sankey and Lemon and Sewell up the middle, that's easier said than done.
Yeah, it's very interesting that he didn't go with Dukes because he ran short yardage all year long. Yeah. So I don't know why. Maybe they just wanted to do a tempo. Maybe he was thinking it would keep them on their heels a little bit if they weren't able to get set. I don't know, but when he got stuff that first time, that's probably when, as a coach, you need to be like, okay, we don't need to do anything fancy. We just need to do what we did to get here. And when they did move to Dukes, he was successful. And when you have a power back like AJ Ouellette, he was successful. So I don't know. I think those early gambles by Dinwiddie there, I think he was just panicking because of that pick 6. I think he knew that they had to answer, and I think they had been answering all year long.
Yeah,
like you said, Kelly has thrown his fair share of interceptions. They still got more turnovers than they made, obviously, but like you look at quarterbacks in the past, like in the NFL, Brett Favre, or in the CFL, Ron Lancaster, those guys threw a ton of interceptions, but they also threw a ton of touchdowns, and that's what Kelly was doing. And so I think that's just the frustration that happened when not only Kelly himself, but Dinwiddie, when he's seeing that, hey, we're not actually rebounding like we were. And I think that just kind of led to them both panicking and overthinking and try to force things. And a lot of times when you deviate from your plans and you try to force things, it's not going to work out for you.
Yeah, after that second, third, and short stop at the end of the half, Cody threw an interception, 46 seconds to go, but then the very next play,
Bizarre.
Chad Kelly's holding onto the ball like a loaf of bread, and up from behind is the Lemonator, strips the ball, forces a sack, and gets the ball back for Montreal. But Montreal still couldn't do anything with getting that turnover. Sean Oakman was an absolute monster early on in this game.
And then he took that bad penalty. And I think, like, from the replay, I don't know if it was like 100% on. I think he kind of got pushed that way over a little bit too.
I kind of thought so too, that he hit the guard. Yeah,
he hit the guard initially, but I think like just the momentum took him to before the center raised his head. But like you have to know in that situation that you cannot touch the center or they're going to call that. So
yeah,
that's a really tough, because that was one of the drives where Cody actually was able to put the ball in the end zone after that, right? So yeah, a couple of three huge plays for them, but then that one costly error, just it's like a dagger.
Yeah, you're right. It's 10-3 Montreal at halftime. We get a Reggie Stubblefield interception. I think it might have been off of a deflection. And then Toronto limited Montreal to a field goal attempt. And Sean Oakman, he hit the long snapper and extended the drive. Tyler Snead gets the touchdown. It's 17-3 Montreal at that point. And then, like, the very next drive, Chad Kelly's picked off again by Darnell Sankey. David Cote misses a field goal after that. And then Chad Kelly throws a pick six. It's 24-10 at this point. I was blown away because, after that pick six, they put Kelly back in. They actually had a pretty good drive.
It took forever, though.
It did. It ate like 5 minutes off the clock. It was right at the beginning of the fourth quarter. 13 plays, 89 yards, 5 minutes and 2 seconds off the clock. So there was 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Toronto's down by 2 touchdowns. Now, it's the CFL, man. They make a stop. They get back onto the field. Montreal doesn't get much of a breather, and all of a sudden, we got a game again. But.
Oh.
And here's the thing. I don't know what it is with Montreal and kick returners. They've got Super Mario. He gets hurt. Chandler Worthy comes in. He's doing great work. Chandler Worthy gets hurt. In comes James Letcher Jr. This is only his 5th game in the CFL. And he scores a 105-yard kickoff return for a touchdown to put the Als back up by 3 scores. Just when you think maybe he can get settled down, we got the CFL clock on our side. We can get back in this thing. And then the special team scores. That hurts.
Oh, it just, yeah, you go from the highest highs to the lowest lows. Like, you could hear a pin drop in that stadium after that. Like, just, you think, okay, because the Argos and Chad Kelly, they had come back from behind before, and they've shown that they can score in 2 plays if they wanted to. So there was definitely, I think there's a lot of people. I know you tweeted out on the account that it was over, and I was like, is it? And yes, it was.
But then that happened. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's just like, oh man, but entertaining as heck. Like,
oh yeah. Hey, and I guess we better start giving props to Byron Archambault, the assistant head coach and special teams coordinator for the Montreal Alouettes. I think he's a guy that doesn't get talked about.
Yeah.
He might have the best beard in the CFL, so he definitely deserves credit for that.
We like our beards.
I mean, the Mickey Donovans and the Mark Killams and you know, the Jeff Reinbolds of the world. They get all the credit in the world when it comes to special teams. Byron Archambault, that's a name that I think we're gonna need to know going forward here. And then I feel like once the Alouettes get a lead, it's pretty tough to take it away from them, because I still don't feel, and I don't know what it is, like we've been able to get that complete dominant game from William Stanback right from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But once they get a lead, that just seems, that's when, you know, Stanback is at his best. They actually had a 51-yard drive, Sheldon, after Devaris Daniels scored a touchdown to bring Toronto back within 2 scores.
Mm-hmm.
That 51-yard drive killed 4 minutes and 53 seconds off the clock.
Yep.
What are you gonna do? Fajardo's running. They're getting these short plays that just eat clock, and it's not pretty, but it gets it done, and it got it done for the Alouettes. They had a touchdown at the end of the game from Jesh Renantwi after taking over after a turnover on downs. It ends, 9 total turnovers for the Argos. Now, the Argos plus 27 turnover ratio on the year, and now the Alouettes were plus 14. Do the math. The Owls, they're plus 22 now because they had a turnover, and those Argos are plus 19. That is the swing in this game alone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But still, Montreal did not take advantage of all those turnovers. And you're not going to be able to do that 2 games in a row. And you're not going to be able to do that against Winnipeg because, again, like, there's a difference between Zach Collaros and Chad Kelly as far as their career goes. The amount of times they've been to the dance, the amount of times games they've played, the pressure situation. So if you're a Montreal fan, yes, you're happy. You're really happy that you're going to the show, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done still.
Yeah, we'll be able to talk about the Grey Cup a lot still, but I just, at this point of the year, I don't think that you can push Montreal around like Winnipeg pushed BC around.
No, their defense is playing at a championship level. That's for sure.
Yeah. That's it. The Owls, they stun the country, and like I said on Thursday, there was no pressure on them. All the pressure was on Toronto, and they clearly felt it. And Chad clearly felt it in this one. I've seen quotes for him. He's going to be thinking about this one for a long, long time, all off season long. And next year, I don't know, maybe they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. Do we see Andrew Harris again in the CFL? Is he done?
Hopefully. I'm over him. Like, he can so he can sit on the IR for the whole season, then come back and play a couple games in the playoffs. Like, let's just, you had a good season. You enjoyed some juice. Now let's go. It's over. Ferris Bueller is the end of Ferris Bueller. Just go watch that.
Now, Jason Moss, the post-game speech. What did you think of that? It started as an interview, but then the whole team was huddled around him. You love the television F-bomb, but man, it was good.
But I'm telling you, like, that is what has made Montreal the team that they are. Is I think he takes every situation and he turns it into a teachable moment. If I could quote the great Andrew Chase. I wanted to run through a wall just from hearing that one speech from him, because he instills his confidence in his team. he holds his players accountable, but he sets his players up for success. He's obviously learned quite a lot since his stint as a head coach in Edmonton. It's his demeanor on the sidelines. Even when he gets upset, he's calm for the most part. He he's not making those questionable decisions he did when he was in Edmonton, when kicking a field goal when you need to go for a touchdown, or vice versa. Like, I think he's definitely the most improved coach in the past few years, and these players are obviously playing for him and they want to win, and I think it's gonna be a heck of a game. They're gonna put up a good fight.
In the last few weeks, giving shout outs to the linebackers in Montreal. Well, Tyrese Beverette and Reggie Stubblefield combined for 21 tackles.
Wow.
Both of them had double digits, 10 for Beverette, 11 for Reggie. A remarkable game from the Alouettes, a complete team effort, scoring in all three phases. I mean, Sankey, Dequoy, Stubblefield, KB, and Ento with an interception. It was Ruffin that had a big hit late in the game. And once they got that momentum, there was just no stopping them, man. If we look at what happened to the Argos here, Chad Kelly, 21 of 36, 246 yards, 4 picks, and the 1 touchdown. He had 62 yards rushing. AJ Olette, 14 carries, 71 yards, so he had over 5 yards a carry there. Devaris Daniels was their leading receiver with 77 yards. And then, man, we look at the Alouettes. Austin Mack, their leading receiver all year long, he only had 36 yards in this game. Tyson Philpott was actually their leading receiver, and they're without Keon Julian Grant. Maybe they get him back for the Grey Cup. Cody Fajardo, he had 175 yards, 18 to 25, a touchdown and a pick. But bottom line is, they went to BMO, where the Argos were undefeated all year, and got the job done. Winnipeg took care of business at home, 24-13 over the BC Lions, and BC had the first possession. They were doing all right. They got the first points on the board there. They started with a field goal, but I felt like when Winnipeg got the ball, that was the tone setter. And Saskatchewan actually did it to BC right around Labor Day. They bullied the Lions in the trenches, and that's how they won the game. So I don't know, and they did mention it on the broadcast, maybe the Lions are a bit undersized on the line, and maybe they gotta hit the buffet and the weight room over the off season, or bring in a guy or two to see what happens. I know they ended up having an injury at defensive tackle earlier in the year. They were relying on Stove Richardson, right? And if he was on this team, maybe it's a little bit of a different story. Those guys are valuable to a defensive line. But Winnipeg's first drive, 10 plays, 70 yards, almost 7 minutes off the clock, every single one was from Brady Oliveira, and they took a 7-3 lead. And there was more than one play on that drive where Oliveira was stopped, and he kept his legs moving. The offensive line kept the push going, and including the one that ended up being the touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
And the BC defenders, they just couldn't stop it. They got bullied. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, and you love to see it. You love to see a good running offense with the Hoggies pushing them and just getting that extra 5-10 yards. I remember as a kid, like, watching Zarka when he'd be moving the pile there, and then they would just come, and it's always fun. Like, playoff football, you want to have an amazing, you need to have a running game to set it off, and and Oliveira proved why he's the best running back in the league. And the, that was about it. Like, this game kind of reminded me of the Banjo Bowl, but not to the extreme that it got. Just the Riders went in, they got a field goal. They're like, okay, yeah, we got a score. And then at the end of it, just boom. This score flattered BC, I think. I think it flattered BC a lot. You had two, we'll get into it, but Sergio missed a couple field goals. Like, it just, I was saying in the group chat, like, I felt like I wrote off BC when they were even down by 5 points. It was just like, yeah, no, this game's over, because it's just,
It felt like
you could
Winnipeg
tell.
controlled it, even
Yeah.
though they weren't up, you know?
Yeah, it's just they were setting the pace, and they were just running the clock even in the second quarter, the third quarter. It was just a typical Winnipeg game. They bring their lunch pails and they get to work.
On the first drive of the game for the Lions, Taquan Mizell had a 22-yard carry. And that's when I thought, oh, maybe this is what the Lions need to do. They're here to bring some balance and grind with the Bombers. Yeah. Mizell only got 4 carries the rest of the way.
Yeah.
And look, we only see so much on TV with how big the field is and what the quarterback actually sees when he drops back to pass. But when the Bombers do not have to worry about the run at all, they've got the players in the secondary to cover these guys. So we don't know. Vernon got sacked 10 times. Or I guess 9, it says on the stat sheet.
Yeah, they said 10 on the broadcast.
They did. So. Yeah, they did. But when you're getting sacked that amount of times, at some point, Vernon's holding onto the ball too long because, you know, the DBs can't be. He just wasn't seeing it. And whatever Richie Hall brought was confusing him, you know?
Yeah, well, and he also didn't even have the opportunity. Like, he's a shorter quarterback, and when you have someone like Willie Jefferson coming down on you with his giant ass arms, and like there was lots of times where Vernon went to drop back, and he already felt the pocket collapsing, and it was just game time, and he couldn't even get away to throw the ball away. But there was a couple times when he could have thrown the ball away, and he didn't. So that's just growth. I know I said on the last show here that I was tired of hearing the bad VA and the good VA. And I don't think this was a bad VA game. I just think like he was overwhelmed by the pressure. Like, I think just like Chad Kelly, he put too much of it on his own shoulders and tried forcing it a little bit, holding on to the ball a little bit too long. Like, it's just, but like you said, with Mizell only getting 4 carries, that his offensive coordinator needs to help him out by setting the pace and getting more run. Even if you get stuffed and you only get a couple yards on first down, you're at least showing the Bombers that they need to stay honest and respect your run game. But they didn't, because there wasn't any.
There were a few moments in the game where Dembski and Oliveira couldn't make the block on the rushers from the Lions, so they were able to get to Zach and pressure him as well. But the other way, like the Bomber D line, Willie Jefferson had 2 sacks, he had 2 knockdowns here, so, and he had a forced fumble, and I know VA ended up recovering that fumble. But I do wonder if that knee is affecting him a little bit. I did think there were a few times where he could have taken off and had the first down. And I don't know if that's the same knee that has been bugging him throughout the season. There have been a few games where he's been limping around out there.
I think it is the same knee, but I can't say for certain.
So I don't know if we're going to hear about that in the coming days or what was wrong with VA, but there were multiple games this year where he was limping around out there, and maybe that did affect him here in this one. 13 of 26, 221 yards, 3 picks, and a touchdown was his final stat line there. And I know that it felt like Winnipeg was dominating, but they didn't have a passing game going either. Zach Collaros, 14 of 21, 158 yards. I guess the difference with the Bombers is they didn't turn the ball over. And they played clean football, and they didn't give BC opportunities to take over with many short fields for most of the game. They were playing with a long field, and the field was tilted in Winnipeg's favor here. But they didn't really pull away either. And special teams ended up being a factor in this one as well, because after that first drive for the Bombers, where it was all Brady all the time, they were kind of trading 2 and outs, grinding some yards here and there, and then the punt block happens and the Bombers go up 15-3. That was an impressive punt block.
It's like a punt tackle. Like it was like
he was back there in a hurry.
Yeah. Somebody missed their assignment on that one.
And I guess some injuries for both teams here that maybe ended up being factors for especially the Lions in the receiving game. And I know VA was looking to Justin McInnes a lot in this one, but Keon Hatcher seems to have become the leader in the BC Lions receiving core, and he got hurt pretty early. He actually didn't even have a target in this one. So, and it looked non-contact, and there were also, I don't know if the turf in Winnipeg, I don't want to start something crazy, is kind of reaching the end of its lifespan. We've seen kind of rumblings of that in Calgary as well, with how many injuries happened there this year. But Adam Bighill gets hurt for the Bombers. TJ Lee gets hurt for the Lions, and so does Keon Hatcher. Those are 2 key injuries that the Lions had to deal with in this game.
Yeah, losing those players, anytime you lose players of that caliber, it's going to hurt you. I know it's always next man up, but especially in the playoffs, it's tough for that next man to really, be significant, because they probably don't have the experience that the starters would have at that point, right? So tough losses, and then hopefully Big Hill's good for the Grey Cup, but it looked weird because he was walking off, and then it obviously tightened up or whatever, right when he
hit
got
him
close
again
to the
or
sidelines.
something.
Yeah, so hopefully he's okay.
So I got to say, maybe Kyrie Wilson is one of the most underrated defenders in the CFL for the Bombers. He gets a sack in this one. He also has 3 tackles. He seemed to be more involved in the play when Big Hill left the game, but it's in the first half. It's 18-3. The Lions convert that fake punt on 3rd and short, and then VA gets sacked 2 plays later, and it was just the story of this game. Anytime, BC made a play, Winnipeg was again in the backfield and forcing a loss with the Lions. Just no time there at all. But 18-3 Winnipeg, end of the first half. VA throws a prayer. I don't know if you can plan that.
Well, according to Glenn Suter, that's exactly how they wrote it up.
Hey, and if they drew it up like that, I am deeply impressed. But the cluster of defenders and McInnes, it's.
I'm certain it is drawn up for the player that's down back. They are supposed to look for loose balls, but it didn't look like BC was trying to bat the ball forward. They were trying to catch the ball. So is Winnipeg. It was a lucky bounce and a good reaction. Like, let's not make it more than it is here. It was a Hail Mary that got answered.
So we had a game at that point. BC is only down 8 at halftime.
Yeah. And they get the ball to start.
And they had a nice return. Terry Williams put them into really good field position to start the second half. But can you guess what happened, Sheldon?
I think I can guess what happened.
2 straight sacks.
Yeah.
for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers after that 43-yard return from Terry Williams. Just any momentum just gone in an instant. And the Bombers, they actually ate 5 minutes off the clock after that, missed the field goal there. The Lions answer back with a field goal of their own. So we're in the third quarter. They're only down 5. So they've
I'm pretty sure
hung
this is
around.
exactly where I sent that message.
Yeah.
Where it's like they were hanging in there. It's just they weren't doing anything to take these advantages that Winnipeg was giving them. And when you're not going to win playoff games if you don't take advantage of the other team's errors.
Yeah, this was just Winnipeg football. Justin McInnis gets a huge catch. Winnipeg follows it up with a sack. BC converts a 2nd and 21. And then DeMario Houston with an interception, his 8th of 2023. Obviously a ball hawk this year. An incredible season from him. And then Zach starts looking Kenny Lawler's way. He draws a pass interference. He makes that incredible catch by elbow dropping the turf inbounds.
It's not the. Did Jerry have an elbow drop? No,
or
I don't
was
think
it the
he did.
fist?
Yeah, it was the fist. Yeah, but he's given his best Macho Man.
He was
Macho Man Kenny the King elbow drop. Amazing. When I first saw it, I was like, no, there's no way he didn't get his feet in. And then that other view, you just see that elbow hit, and it's like, wow.
That's why he's the king, man.
Yep.
That's why he's the king. So, I mean, it's just one of those games where Winnipeg just grind away, make it tough on the offense, kick field goals, stay healthy for the most part. I mean, because they're playing banged up. Clearly, Bailey's hurt, Dembski's hurt. Or was he hurt? I don't know.
His ankles look fine to me. Like he had like 17 shots of Toradol, I guess.
He got some of the good stuff, apparently.
Yeah, he looks fine.
Will Schoen be ready for the Grey Cup? That's a big question for that receiving core. But Sheldon, I think this is a big problem with the Lions. Dominic Rhymes doesn't get his first catch until 2:44 left in the game. Yeah. And then the 3rd and 5 call, where the Lions are down 11, and they try to hit Rhymes deep. Now, I don't have a problem with the call because I just say I would take Dominic Rhymes in a one-on-one situation 9 times out of 10. That's all I'm saying. The problem I have with it is, why were they not taking those shots earlier? And I don't know if they were seeing Rhymes in one-on-one situations earlier in the game, but I think they needed to do that a lot earlier than 2 minutes left in the game, because I think taking your chances with number 19 would have paid off well for them.
Yeah, there was also the safety there too, so it wasn't quite only one-on-one. I wouldn't say it was a fully double coverage, but like, I got pissed because like, you need 5 yards there, and you could have had a check down. And I get it, you want to get a bunch of yards, and yeah, like you said, usually 9 times out of 10, Dominic Rhymes is going to get that. But at that point, you gotta kind of not worry about flashy and just worry about safe and get a first down. But I'm not a coach, I guess. I'm not a player. I'm just a guy who was hoping a couple teams would win today and didn't. So it's just like any other Rider weekend for me. But
I mean, there were Evan Holm. He seals it with an interception at the end. He makes that big stop on Dominic Rhymes. I mean, you had a BC defender breaking up a Kenny Lawler touchdown with his shoe.
It was like a Sweet Chin Music almost.
I don't know if I've ever seen that in a playoff game. I mean, dude.
And the refs were letting them play too for the most part in both of these games. There was only one kind of penalty that I thought should have been called that maybe wasn't. But like, I think for the most part they let him play, and that's good. You want to see that. There wasn't really any glaring issues. There wasn't any missed calls, so it was very well officiated games. So I'm glad we got that. Yeah,
It's the Bombers, man.
it's the Bombers.
What else can you say? 4 straight Grey Cup appearances. 2 out of the last 3 they won. Zach Collaros, the first quarterback in CFL history to start 4 consecutive Grey Cups. But according to people on X, he's just a game manager.
And and the Riders shouldn't have ever got rid of him. Give me a break. 98% of the CFL fans and probably coaches thought he should probably retire.
And Toronto thought he was done, I think.
They were just like, they were going to take a flyer on him. They sent a 5th round pick or whatever, which that pick turned out to be Keon Schaefer-Baker, Rider fans. So let's remember that. And then Toronto, if Matt Nichols doesn't get hurt, Winnipeg doesn't trade for him. And who knows what happens. So this was like 6 different things that had to go right for Collaros to have the success that he's having. But you have all these Rider fans who somehow try to make it feel like he's the guy who should have been the guy, and he should have been my guy, and he's not my guy, so I'm mad about it. No, like, be happy that the guy didn't, can still form sentences because he wasn't getting concussed over and over again. He got put on a team that had an amazing offensive line, and yeah, 2 former Rider quarterbacks. That's going to be the entire narrative where I live this week. So I hope I can get more on the CFL feed and the other teams' feeds, because this echo chamber I'm in is going to be miserable.
You're going to massage that algorithm, brother.
I'm trying. Believe me, I'm trying.
Get some of those Bombers and Als fans on your timeline.
Bomber fans are insufferable. Like, I know why everyone turned on Rider fans after like 2007
I know
and
what you mean. Yeah.
2009 and 10, and it's just
here's my thing. The small contingent of Bomber fans that hate their quarterback. How many other teams in the league would love Zach as their guy,
No.
That one I will never. Yeah, let's complain about 2 Grey Cups out of the last 3 years. Okay.
Yeah.
But we get a Grey Cup matchup we've never seen.
And that's crazy. That's literally crazy.
I know that Winnipeg has spent a significant amount of time in the East.
Yeah.
And maybe there were times where Montreal wasn't in the league, but still, the fact that it's never happened, I think is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I guess. No, I'm just joking. It is. It's cool. It's good. It's another good narrative for the league. So hopefully they can use that instead of the 2 former Rider quarterbacks. But when it just comes down to it, it's 2 very well coached teams who, one of them is just a perennial like all-star team, and the other one is like just a band of misfits that came together and are playing for each other and their coach. So this has the makings to be a really good game. Like, both defenses are unreal. Winnipeg's offense, you definitely have to give them the edge. Montreal's special teams maybe gets a slight edge, but Winnipeg's is really good too. I don't know, man. But again, Montreal doesn't have any pressure.
Yeah,
they're the underdogs. Nobody, again, everyone wrote them off against Toronto, myself included. People are going to write them off against Winnipeg too. Even after this dominant defensive performance, they're still going to write them off, and they're still going to say Cody can't win the big one. They're still going to say that Bombers are just a better team. But again, any given Sunday, and we're back to Sunday next week.
I think that might be the story. Can Cody get over the Winnipeg hump?
Winnipeg is his kryptonite. So that's I didn't even remember, think about that. That's right. There you go. That's a better storyline than he's a former Rider quarterback. Just Winnipeg against Cody. Let's just roll with that.
Now, I don't know. Hopefully the crossbars at Tim Hortons Field don't get in his way. But hey, Montreal's first Grey Cup appearance since 2010. Look, Anthony Calvillo remembers that well. He's in the booth now with the team, so he knows what it takes to win a Grey Cup. Where did the BC...
remember that well.
Yeah, I was pretty darn cold at that game. Where I sat at Commonwealth Stadium, it was like lower bowl in the corner end zone, and where we sat, the concrete was just caked with ice. Like, it was brutal. They didn't bother taking the ice chip to it at all. It was just brutal. Like, I was frozen, but
yeah,
made it through. That's what going to the Grey Cup's all about. Where do the Lions go from here? Is it really just getting healthy and getting back at it? Because you know what? Like, they crushed Winnipeg in July, and I think they truly believed they'd be able to, do it here. But they somewhere along the way, they kind of fell off the wagon a little bit after their hot start.
Yeah, they're still a really good team. So yep. I think they just need to retool. Maybe I don't know. They
need to build a running game. I wonder how would it have gone if they had James Butler? I don't know. They didn't give him the ball much either, really, as much as you would have liked when he was with them. But they need a running game. Yeah,
upgrading the running back and the O-line. That's probably where BC needs, and their defense. Their defense definitely took a slide in the second half of the season. So whether that's something that Ryan Phillips can fix, whether he needs to get some different playmakers in there or what, but I think those are the three things that will take BC over the hump if they can rectify or solidify those areas.
I'm interested to see what's going to happen with Toronto. Obviously, they got their quarterback, they got their guy, they got their center, but they actually do have lots of veterans on that team. I'm sad we didn't get to see Enoch Mwamba play at all this year, and maybe it's the last time we've ever seen him in the CFL. And if last November is the last time we saw him on a football field playing, that's awesome. And I still think he's probably celebrating that moment and winning, the MOC and MVP of the Grey Cup.
For sure. He also got paid his entire salary for not doing anything, and I'm sure he got a nice salary from the CFL for doing the waggle and everything. So
he had a pretty cushy year.
Yeah, I think he's laughing. And if he does retire, at least he technically did go out in his playing career with that. So yeah. But once a rider, right? So I always like to see former riders succeed.
Andrew Harris might be done.
Hopefully. Yeah, hopefully. Let's move on.
There might be some other Argos, but I think they're going to come back with a vengeance as well in 2024.
Well, like Derek Dennis said, this is their adversity now. This is, if you want to, we like wrestling. This is
Don't say it.
This is their Cody Rhodes losing WrestleMania, right? So we'll see what happens next year.
Well, hopefully they can make it to the dance next year and lose again and then continue that story. Hey, if you wanted to bring Cody into this.
We would like to finish the story, Travis, okay?
Hey,
just because you're a hater.
I'm okay with dragging the story on, brother.
Yeah.
You gotta milk it like Disney and Star Wars.
Oh, yeah. Let's do that. Let's do that.
The 110th Grey Cup is set. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the Montreal Alouettes, just like we had it all drawn up back in June.
Oh yeah, well, of course, 2-0 this week for me, right? So FML.
You can rate, review, and subscribe to Two and Out on your favorite podcatcher, and like and leave a comment on YouTube as well. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back later this week. I'll be talking to you from my hotel room in the Hammer. Can't wait to get back to Southern Ontario. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.